Hi, everybody. Welcome back to CineDB Insights, which is an offspring of the CineDB.Africa conversation series, a series of in-depth encounters with film professionals from the continent that was developed by a group of African curators as part of the CineDB Africa project of the Goethe Institute, which is now accessible on the e-portal of the Durban Filmmart Institute, the new home of CineDB.Africa. Today, I am so happy to welcome Elizabeth Radshaw from Hot Docs to join us. Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk with all of you.
Great. So maybe before we get started to talk directly about Hot Docs, can you please tell us about your professional background? What were you doing before you worked for Hot Docs? Where do you live? What's your connection to documentaries?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm coming to you live today from Toronto, where I'm based, but I'm originally American now, but I've lived in Canada longer than I lived in the States. So I guess that makes me especially even more Canadian. Before I was at Hot Docs, which has been an enormously long time, I think this is my 13th year here. I was a distributor in the UK at TVF International. And before that, I was at the National Film Board of Canada. And even before that, I was working in production in, wait for it, fiction and documentary out of New York and in Montreal. But I will say this, that I am a recovering distributor always at heart. I think the passion that I have when it comes to documentary films, not only is it being just one of the most purest and beautiful storytelling forms, I'd love, and this is kind of what gets me out of bed in the morning, seeing films connect with audiences. It is the most special thing. It's why all of us do the work. It's why we tell stories, is to reach people. Very happy when moms and dads and families get to enjoy our films, but I love it when I can bring your films to strangers all around the world, especially our Toronto audiences, which I think are the best. But it's that exercise of finding and engaging the audience for the story so that your film can achieve the job that it's set out to do is really what keeps me moving in this space and constantly innovating and working with new partners or trying new things or harnessing all sorts of forms of technology to achieve those ends. So that's the stuff that gets me out of bed.
So it would be great if you would tell us more about Hot Docs industry and the slate of programming that you oversee.
And then I may even be crazy and split it up into 3 because we have our cinema as well. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll start with first thing first, industry side. So Hot Docs industry programs are year-round programs that happen not just at the festival, but year-round. We'll start with the festival because it's the thing that's just breathing down my neck at the moment. It's kicking off at the end of April this year, the 27th, and going to the 7th of May. I think those dates are right. But at the festival itself, we have our kind of key components that at the heart of it is our Hot Docs Forum, similar to the IDFA Forum. We call it the Dragon's Den of International Film Finance. In a space that looks like Hogwarts, we present 20 projects that pitch to decision makers from around the world. We select them from about 300 submissions, and to mark your calendar, those submissions happen in the December time. So you should think of Christmas and Hot Docs together. That's when you should get your applications in for the forum. Alongside the forum application, it happens all in one package now, are the deal maker meetings. So those 20 projects that do their presentation also get to take meetings. We select another 40. And so all of those projects are taking their one-to-one meetings with the decision makers that are in attendance. So it's an incredible experience on the potential for funding front. But what I would always say about those who are able to pitch at the forum, it's an exercise in launching your film. It's an exercise in launching yourself as a director, as a company, as a brand, as all of those things. The marketing attention that you get is sometimes more important than even the financing. But yes, the financing comes too. The two are very much hand in hand. And so what we found with these bigger forums is they gather a lot of attention from players that are tracking work for the long term, whether it be for sales and distribution or whether it be for awards and accolades. This is really the place, or for other festivals that are sitting out of the forum to track programs for programming. It really plays a critical role in that aspect. And additionally, the majority of the films that come through our forum and Dealmaker get funded. So it's worth the investment and exercise in that aspect. Alongside those market activities, we have our close-up meetings, which are educational, our conference sessions that happen at the festival, as well as many of our labs that take place. Of course, when you're at the festival, there's incredible screenings to watch and films to participate in, and sort of being in that energy and engaging with the Hot Docs Toronto audiences are a lot of fun. So that's the festival itself for the industry staff. Year round, we're running an enormous amount of programming around our funds and labs, as well as our, I call them special projects, but other activities that are engaged there for professional development, education, and kind of helping filmmakers take their next steps in their careers. The funds and labs for this audience here are most important to pay attention to. There's two funds that are mostly applicable for everyone that we're speaking to with today, which is our Cross Currents International Fund and our Hot Docs Blue Ice Fund. Our other funds are awesome. We've got a Music Doc Fund, the Hot Docs Slate Family Fund. We've got some Canadian film funds. They're all a little bit harder to access if you're not Canadian, but keep your eyes on them, because if you are doing a Canadian co-production, you would be eligible through your Canadian partner to apply for those funds. But we're going to talk about Cross Currents and Hot Docs Blue Ice here. The Cross Currents International Fund has had an incredible legacy of the past, I want to say 6 years now, being able to support films at their production period with production support, as well as a lab component to kind of carry them through to the end. And these filmmakers come from all around the world, but historically underrepresented communities, which is a rather broad kind of catchment, but one to sort of help engage filmmakers from within those communities to tell their stories. That fund has a deadline that's in the summertime. You can keep your eyes on our website for those deadlines. But the Hot Docs Blue Ice Fund is our African film fund specifically for filmmakers living and working in the continent. We've been doing this fund for over 10 years now, and it's just incredible to see the legacy and impact of the development grants, the production grants, and completion grants, and sort of the touch points of support we've been able to engage with filmmakers on the continent, alongside the lab and mentorship components that comes with it. I will say this, this fund in the past decade that we've been a part of, we are part of a really special community of film supporters on the continent across the entire region. And we're not doing this in a bubble, but we're so proud and happy to be a part of all of those different initiatives and programs that really collaborate together. And so it's incredibly special to see when we, point to a filmmaker in a film that's happened, all the touch points of the different programs that they've participated in across the continent, and then also with Hot Docs Blue Ice that we feel really proud about. With this fund, we're actually doing the selection for this fund right now. Yoo-hoo. So the deadlines again have passed. They're in the fall. And it's something that in support with the cohort that is selected, they also get to participate in two kind of attendance of festivals with Hot Docs. So we start off, usually we will kick off the fund grantees attending Durban, and then following through so that you complete your round with us and finishing up at Hot Docs at the Forum. So that's what this year's group will be, who are selected, will be able to do. But we match that with mentors that stay with you for the entire year, and really often much longer, to continue and walk you through to bring you to the success of your project. The other professional development activities that we do are typically for Canadians. One that's called Doc Incubator, which is modeled very closely on a lot of our other labs, and Doc Accelerator, and a handful of other things. They're wonderful, great programs, mostly for Canadians.
That's okay. You have to nourish your local community too.
Absolutely.
Could we be a little bit more specific about the Blue Ice Fund? Could we talk a little bit about numbers? So are these flat rate grants, or do you judge the grant that a project receives based on their total budget, or what kind of support they need? How does it work?
Yeah, so typically there's development grants, which stay below 20,000 Canadian. The production grants really move between 20 and 50. And then completion grants usually come in at around the $40,000 mark. And it's going to depend on that year's number of applicants, sort of how many we're able to give out. But we're usually granting between maybe 5 and 10 each year, broken up, across those three groups.
Absolutely. And how can people get on your radar?
So we've had some touch points at Marrakesh at their events there, which have been fantastic. At Atlas, we longtime friends and supporters of Durban Film Market and being present there. And certainly we've had some expeditions to Addis and other places where we've kind of set up and popped up and done some workshops. I think there's a couple of ways. It's not always easy and affordable to get out to markets outside of your home country. And I can't expect people to show up maybe at Kumra or other places without their receiving lots of other support. So on our website, in the funds section, you will see the emails for Heidi Tao Yang, our Director of Funds and Labs, for Yishan Xiao, who's also our kind of Manager of Funds and Labs, for my email as well. Just write us. And say, hey, I'm living here in Cameroon, in Yaoundé. I want to tell you about the film that we're working on. I need help connecting with these people. That is a critical part of the work that we do. Another thing may be to work within your region. You may say, oh, I know Judy Cambridge in Nairobi. I'm going to write her, and maybe she'll gather up some names and fire them over to us. And we work a lot with our partners on the ground, whether it be at DocBox or with STEPS or with different groups, or aussi, on parle français, c'est pour les côtés, les francophones, on est toujours là pour causer ensemble en français ou quoi. Si c'est nos amis à Sénégal, à Mali, partout, we're there for you, okay?
That was going to be my next question. Can I write to you in French if I don't speak English?
Bien sûr, on est là. Non, on est obligé de causer les deux langues avec nos amis francophones en Afrique, mais on va faire un grand effort, toujours. So we really want to make sure that, all of our applications and our notes are available in French and English. It's all there, and you can always call us, Zoom us, write us. And again, I just want it to feel as accessible as possible. When it comes to other, regional markets, we really make a big effort to get out into the world. Obviously, the past few years have been a little bit different. We've done a lot of stuff online, and I think that has opened the doors to a lot of new voices, and we're excited about that. And we'll continue to kind of be a presence in Zoom rooms and at sessions and workshops that take place that you don't necessarily have to get on a plane. But we do have a good kind of standard list of events that we go to be available to have that one-on-one time, which I do think also is a critical part of our business as well.
So how many projects are being submitted, and how many are you selecting?
Yeah, it depends on the year. I think sometimes we usually average, between 80 and 120 projects. It sort of floats back and forth depending on where things are at of each year. So to pick about 10 is pretty good in terms of your chances. And we're also really mindful to make sure that we're really looking to create a representation across the entire continent, and to, champion voices from regions that, have harder or more challenging forms of funding kind of presented to them than others that have a little bit more established other pathways to funding. So yeah, those have kind of been our points of engagement, but we've been incredibly proud of, the films that have come through, and we can talk about those in a second. I think the important thing, if you're thinking about applying to the fund, is to go back and look at the films that we have funded in the past, sort of just do a little scan and say, okay, this is interesting. I'm observing the type of films that were funded, the type of projects that have received support across all of it. And it's all on the website. Then feel free to email us with a pitch, a deck, or something, even just a one-pager, and say, this is the track I'm on. What are you guys thinking? You know, what flags do you have? What do you see? This is really where I want to go. And we definitely do that engagement and support. And then, you know, the application take the summer, our summer, North American summer, the, you know, June, July, and August months to prepare and refine and work on it, and then get the application in. But like all things, when it comes to this stuff, having multiple points of connection and, you know, taking the time to reach out to us before is always very beneficial. But we've absolutely funded cold applications that we've never met the people before. The project came through, we thought, this is stellar, we need to support it.
Okay, so before we start to like wrap up and get into like the more fun stuff of this interview, what is the equity fund?
So about 3 years ago, at the pitching forum, we had a group of civilians, non-industry people who participated under a program called First Look, and they were giving a prize for these projects. And these are philanthropic supporters of documentaries. They were friends of the festival, but they were very curious about how docs were made. And after they gave that prize, they peeled off and they said, we want more skin in the game. We want to invest in documentaries. And there's models of this in the States, like Impact Partners and Chicago Media Group. And Hot Docs said, okay, for Canadians, this is new, but we're going to give it a go. And we pulled together a group of investors, and we now invest equity into documentaries. It has been wildly successful. We've invested in about 10 films, and a few have done incredibly well. We invested in films called Fireball, Influence, which is actually a South African Canadian co-production. We put some money into Loudmouth, which is a documentary on Al Sharpton that just released at Tribeca this year. And lots of different stories. We have a few more coming down the line. And our investors have had a lot of fun. We really operate on the fundamental principles of the kind of producer guidelines of equity investment. We're not here to be exploitative by any means. We're really here to support filmmakers at a critical time. We follow those guidelines pretty much to a T. So what it means for investment, we usually come in no more than 10% of the budget. We look at budgets that are between 1 and 2 million, not typically more than that. And we are, you know, follow those rules, last money in, first money out, et cetera, and follow the crediting guidelines, you know, pretty seriously. For our investors, it's an incredible experience to just really put money where our mouths are and support the films at a time that's most critical. We are very generous with our drawdowns and really try to get the money into filmmakers' pockets while they're in production and while they need it most, so it can get up on screen. It doesn't put the burden of folks carrying expenses or costs on their credit cards while they're trying to make these films. On the market side, I think our investors are savvy enough to know that this is not an industry where you're here to make big bucks, but one where they don't want to lose money. That's kind of been the philosophy. They want to invest in money in films so they can see their money come back, so it can go into another film.
Tell me your favorite films that you've supported, African or non-African.
I can't say favorite. That's not fair, because they're all my favorites. I really love the films, but I'll talk about some more recent ones that have come through, whether they've played at our festival or other festival. Zinder is such a gorgeous film by Aish Maki that has run the circuit, has kind of wrapped its festival circuit recently. And if you can find it and watch it, it's so stunning. Downstream to Kinshasa is another film by Diado Hamadou. It was at Cannes, and then it played at TIFF, and that did really well, and is another just gorgeous film. A film that we had at our festival last year, Africa Moot, by Chanel Sidat. It was just another really, you know, amazing story that did really a nice kind of circuit as well. I'm going really quickly. Of course, Softy, Sam Soko's film that was at Sundance and at Hot Docs. We were at Sundance, and Millicent Tanto's film by Millicent Tanto Bongole, Marian Isaacs were both there with their premiere of that film that we supported about 6 or 7 years ago through the Hot Docs Fund. Kind of stayed with that project throughout, and just are incredibly proud about those films. So those are just a handful to keep your eyes on. So many more are on the Hot Docs website. You can kind of loop through the little carousel and see these films and get a sense of kind of what the fund has supported and the work that we're really excited by.
I love all those films. Okay, last question. This is the last one. And I really feel like I say this in every interview, but I'll say it again. Like, it seems very silly to me to be asking people other than African filmmaking talent this question, but what do you think we can be doing to support African filmmaking talent more?
Well, thanks for prefacing with that, because I always feel really funny too. Like, we're a Canadian documentary film festival sitting in Toronto, that now has had a 10-year legacy of with this incredible fund. And I'll start with this. When we had a sit down with the team from Blue Ice and Neil Tabasnik, and he said, I wanted to start an African film fund, I was like, cool. I'm going to get on, it was Skype back then, guys, on the Skype and just speak to every single person that I possibly know in the content. And then we would speak to someone and say, give me 5 more names of 5 other people I should be speaking to. And we spent months just doing outreaches and phone calls and connections. And through that, we made a lot of connections, connected people, introduced other people to other people. And when I think about the past decade and the sort of growth of different organizations and initiatives and communities, whether they be, what our dear friend Pascal is doing and Central African Republic, or what Babasao is doing with her work, writers' workshops in Dakar, or what Judy's doing, or what Tiny and Dawn are doing in Steps. And there's, so much more kind of happening in these very localized and deep and dynamic efforts. And I would give anything for a gathering of everyone to come together and to strengthen. It's like, I want us all to like pick a spot and meet up and just share, exchange, support one another, engage in one another, and learn, do show and tells, do, presentations of these initiatives, kind of find the intercontinental collaborations. They're not always obvious. Like, you're not necessarily going to have, a Senegalese South African co-production, but why not? Let's try. And when I think about, what I would love to, if there was like a small pot of money to say, okay, we're all going to meet here on this time for 1 week, and we can fly everybody in, and we're just going to come together and put our heads together to share and exchange and learn and find pathways to grow more together. Because I believe that it's that sense of community and communion coming together that so much more can be learned and discovered, and so many kind of initiatives can be strengthened and deepened, and funding and support can be found. So I miss that, and I hope that as we're kind of starting to travel more again, and that opportunity is the thing, because I can put my finger on many other aspects specific to filmmaking, specific to marketing, distribution, specific to audience engagement, and all of those are really obvious, but they're specific to the regions and specific to very countries or etc. But there's so many incredible initiatives that are happening, and I want them to be stronger and deeper, and I'd love them to come together.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think that's a perfect place to end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this, and hope to see all of you at Hot Talks one day, and your applications in our inbox and your emails in our inbox too.
Yes, send emails. Picking up the phone sometimes is more complicated, but set up that Zoom meeting. I also think that sometimes filmmakers really forget that these initiatives are run by human beings and not by like robots or some kind of hand of God. We are indeed human beings.
We're more than just databases.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Thank you. Have a beautiful day in Canada.
Such a pleasure. Thank you all so much. And we hope to see you all soon. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.